goodness me. So on that happy note, let's start the call and check in and see where everyone's at. Because I'm really curious where everyone's at. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start a drive, and maybe what we can do, and just think about this, it's an idea that just popped into my head as I spoke. If we can, what I'll maybe do is change the way the video setting works in a second, and we'll capture just the speaker. And maybe not now, maybe next week, we'll get together on a call when you've had some time to digest what I'm about to recommend. And you can just say to people, you don't need to have started at lesson 1. You can come in anytime. Just start. Because they're paying, they're lurking, but they're not coming, and they want to come. But you know what people are like? They feel like, oh, too much time has passed, and we make up stories, and the only way to, stories where reason comes to die. So the only way we can do that is partially with your endorsement. So thank you for those of you who've already written testimonials. If you hadn't yet, please go write one. It doesn't have to be about me. Ideally, it will be about the Mojo Dojo. In other words, the course content, the pace, the digging deep, the changes that are happening for you, hopefully positive. So we can encourage some others to not be so afraid and to get on the mats. Yes. Okay. So it's going to be quite important to figure out what we were talking about last week. This is a key part for all of you. Who of you have watched or participated in the last session? Mark, you were away. You watched or participated. Okay. You did your instructor training in Brazil?
My instructor was getting promoted in jiu-jitsu.
Right.
So they did like the whole thing in Portuguese and blah blah blah. So yeah, I just went there and basically partied all week, did some jiu-jitsu, farted around on the beach. But yeah.
What's your jam?
Vacation.
Vacay.
Yeah.
Well, vacay. Nice. Okay, so I trust that the two of you have watched it. Do you want to share your questions, your takeaways? Because it seems like a hell of a complex thing. But by the same token, it's also the most fundamental thing about our entire psychology, and really everything that we think about political ideology, about ourselves, our identity, gender, about religion, our philosophies, our wellness, our spiritual healing, whatever that is. Underneath, it's all psychology, because the only interface you have with the world is your psyche. So that said, what landed? What questions? What head scratching?
I had a question about you were saying that Buddhists they release they don't use self and other because they relinquish self.
Correct. That's the project of Buddhism. So the project that I'm on is similar but quite different to Buddhism in that particular context. And let me show you a picture that will help you understand. And I'm going to share my screen. Can everybody see that? Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is the Instagram account that I share Hermetics on. And you can see that being a self is this axis of growth and awakening that we're on. When we talk about our consciousness expanding, we're moving up this bar towards the source, towards our actualization vector, towards whatever. Now, actualization, the building of will, means you have to keep a self in the mix, which means you need to constrain yourself. You can't be moved. If I can't zoom in anymore, Mark. It's not getting bigger.
It's all good.
And this is the act of awakening, is to move towards this place where whatever you surrender, it's a me doing the surrender. But what the project of Buddhism is not this straight line up. They're trying to do this. They're trying to curve off to this bar where consciousness is high enough, the mindfulness is there, but there's no self empowering the mindfulness, the consciousness. They want to relinquish self. They want to relinquish ego, so that there's no me, no I in the mix. So think about it. A Buddhist spends all this time, there's different schools and styles of Buddhism. They're learning about the Eightfold Path and the Noble Truths. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to wake up out of what they call the samsara, the illusion of life. And part of that illusion of life is not that it doesn't exist, is that the image that it projects is not indelible. It's not always there. You know this because you can be in a rage and you can not be present because of that. And someone can appeal to you, or you can suddenly realize that you're out of control, and you can calm down and regain composure and suddenly get clarity on the moment. The fact that that's possible means that there's a distorting aspect to restricted or constricted consciousness, which ergo means that an expanded consciousness means you see things extremely clearly. But the thing that catches, the sail that picks up the wind of emotional valence and movement, is the ego, is the self. The self is the part of our identity that has agency. It is the one that wants something to be different than what it is. It wants to avoid pain, which means if it anticipates pain coming, first of all, it needs to anticipate pain, which means it needs to have a sense of time, because time is how we track our movement through space. Right? What we're doing is we're going to start looking at quantum physics in a little bit, but we're not going to get confused about it. It doesn't need to be confusing. Quantum physics, quanta just means measured in packets. And all of space-time is measured in packets. Those packets are called moments. You get a moment in space and a moment in time. And as when they coincide, that's what we're experiencing here. And you can move around 3D in space, but you can't move around 3D in time. Time is moving, and the self and our matter and our consciousness that is connected to this matter is kind of standing still and moving through time. And then that's what causes the movement. Somebody injured you yesterday, but you're not injured by it today. Somebody insulted you, but you're not insulted today. But when you recall the insult, then you can feel insulted again. But you had to recall it. So our memory is our way of storing this map of where the pain is and where the pleasure is, which is our predictive model. Predictive models. And most of us are in some sort of project where we're trying to avoid the final pain, seek the ultimate pleasure, which is union with the divine or liberation from suffering or something like that. So the Buddhists came along and rightly worked out that the seat of suffering, the cause underneath all of that, is the identification with self. Because self is the one that wants something to be different, or wants more of something, or wants something not to end, or wants something to come sooner, or for it not to stop. We're never satisfied with what is. We can't allow what is. We're always in contention with change, because we don't have the perspective That change is not something that's happening to us, that we are part of the change. To be a human being is not a noun, it's not a naming word, it's a doing word, it's a verb. There is a process called Mark, there's a process called Adam, there's a process called Angie. And this is what it feels like to be at the unfolding edge of that process, informed by your predictive model about the story that you tell yourself about what happened yesterday and how that's predicting what's going to come and happen tomorrow. And at the quantum level, just to bring that up for context, time doesn't exist there. That's why things can seem erratic and unpredictable. That is exactly why quantum physics are unpredictable, because things can only be predicted in the context of space-time. I can only predict where something is moving when it's in existence. But it also means that there's this threshold beyond which our understanding of existence doesn't work, which is also what's proving to be fundamental about the universe that we live in. It's not spooky stuff. It just turns out to be this is the way it is. There's many ways to understand that. One of the ways to understand that is imagine we are little programs running in a simulation on a computer. Makes sense? We've got our memory, and we can get more RAM associated to us, and we can take up a lot of disk space, which means we become slow to move and slow to change. We can pick up bugs. We can interact badly with other parts of the simulation. And our little simulation is stuck here on Earth. We can see other potential simulations or imagine them out there in the cosmos, but we can't reach them because we can't interfere with them until we can sort our own shit out. Which is exactly what it is like, and what the project is about: connection with this great secret that we all want to belong to. We can't really connect with that until we can sort our own shit out. And one of the ways to sort your shit out is to just bypass the whole project. Just go, you know what? If I can steer the consciousness out of this groove of self, the consciousness can persist. The conscious awareness can persist and move laterally and just have no self, release of self. And it's surrender fully to the ocean of consciousness, the last great release. What they're giving up is ego, is self, selfhood. Now, when the suffering in the world is great, that is a legitimate way out. But that cannot be the way, because if we were all Buddhists, we would all be doing Buddhist monk things, which means we wouldn't be doing the things we're doing today. And we can't all pursue our purpose that way. And how can we allow little eyes to open into the world 10, 20 years from now if we're not having children, and we're not building cities, and we're not going on adventures, and we're not discovering new things? Because that is not the project of Buddhism. The project of Buddhism is to stop all those things. Not out of mean-spiritedness, but as a way off the uncomfortable ride. Now, the path that I'm advocating, that I'm trying to teach, is to make the ride more comfortable for everything and everyone by first being able to endure discomfort in ourselves and stop wanting the world to change so much just to allow me to pass through it. I need to increase my tolerance, not disconnect my dials from the dashboard. And so what we're doing is we're developing will, a gravity, a stillness, that we're going to consolidate the projects of our purpose and stuff onwards. And I'm living example that this project works. I'm still a self. I still have an ego. I still get arrogant in moments. I still get angry in moments. People, they don't understand. They think, but if you a teacher and you have the attainment that you claim to have, how is it that you're still doing this? But you don't understand the project. The project is not, I'm not trying to become the Dalai Lama, because I don't think that is the future for humanity. I think the future for humanity is to sort our shit out in ourselves. And the only place we have to test is in production, is in the simulation. I can't spin up another one here. I can sometimes when I go to meditate or if I play games. Jiu-jitsu is a game. It's a way of me spinning up a small little packet of conflict, stress, struggle, opportunity, adversity, whatever, and just testing my shit out in that. And then I can back out anytime I want. But we can't back out of life. Or you can. It's called suicide, or it's called Buddhism. But they are still part of life because they are very intimately connected with the signal and with consciousness and with the harmony field and all the rest of it. But what they are not connected with is the struggle that we all live with, which is the struggle of being burdened by choice. I'm here now, I'm encountering something, and part of me wants something to change. It wants it to be different. And now I'm caught in the eternal struggle of that moment. The thing is, the struggle doesn't always have to be so bad. So part of the project of hermetics, excuse me, is to try and understand what are the actual causes and effects? What are the actual relationships between cause and effect? How does the world actually work instead of the bullshit we have our heads pumped with as kids? Our biggest project is to try and be good. Buddhists are not trying to be good, they're trying to be correct in themselves. To be good is to be good by somebody else's standards, which is a Christian idea. And part of that was just this wish to be accepted and whatever, and connected to the tribe, the group, the peers, the whole, which is natural. That came along with evolutionary biology. But Christianity and religion co-opted that and said, right, here's a set of rules, here's morals. If you don't do these things, then you are not good. Here's how to behave. Here's how to stone your slaves. Here's how to push your child off a cliff if they're gay. Here's how to, this is all in the Bible. But then sooner or later, we moderated our way out of that and we said, well, this can't be right. And we synthesized something. But what we left, what got dragged along as a virus was this idea of being good. And most of y'all's project is to unfuck that idea inside your heads about being good for whom. And you think it's not Jesus, but I'm telling you now, if you dig deep enough, it's Jesus. I'm telling you, it is always that. It is always that. We have an idea of a God or a nobility in the universe, and it got the idea got twisted because of our Western education. It's not to say Western education is bad. They didn't know they were doing it. They thought they were doing the right thing. There's no evil person rubbing their hands together making the mess. We're just creating the mess together. And now in this mess, a few of us are waking up going, this is a mess. And the response is not to become a nothing. That is a response, which you're welcome to choose if that is your path. But the path I am teaching is I can show you how to go to that door, but then just go to the Buddhists. They're really good at this, man. They're really good at that. And that there's books, courses, teachers. But if you want to keep you and still move forward to the good place, this is the way. This is the way. And it's going to reconcile with Stoicism. It's going to reconcile with Kabbalah. It's going to reconcile with every single good set of ideas that ever came along. You'll find Carl Jung in this. You'll find Alan Watts in this. You'll find all the good teachers. Because, of course, they were all talking about the same thing. But the one unique thing that we're doing here is we're recognizing that the only other way to clean up the mess is to own the mess. No victimhood. No self-persecution. Which means the self-forgiveness and the self-acceptance is a matter of prudence, not a matter of goodness. You're not earning your way into that state. If you don't immediately begin that, you can't be useful and meaningful to the project that we're all trying to work on, which is to unfuck this timeline. That's my answer to that. Does it make sense?
It does, yeah. And really my thoughts were was my question was more of an opinion question, and like,
It does.
doesn't it seem like they're kind of copping out?
Okay.
Like, it
It
seems like,
does.
sure, like, yeah, I'm gonna be fine, but the rest of you are fucked, right? Like,
Yeah, but
I'm
that's
gonna
where their
make it work for
compassion comes
myself.
in, right? Because what comes in with a high degree of consciousness is not to stop recognizing that condition of self, because the consciousness is aware of the memories that self had. You don't stop becoming who you were. And your little analogy of suffering gives you an extrapolated view on other people's suffering. And you can't be conscious and opening your heart space and not be compassionate towards other people. So in the individual sense, and what they teach is compassion. But your question is, isn't it a cop out? I think I think the design caters for both choices, both paths. It's just true for me that I cannot I cannot find it in myself to want to follow this path where I actually love myself and I love being me. I love this adventure. And not only do I love the adventure, I can see potential bright future after some great suffering where the whole human race catches this bug that I've got, and we want to grow and expand without the drama. Imagine whole families practicing like this from the minute they open their eyes. All you teach them is self-forgiveness, self-acceptance, self-love, consent, self and other, consciousness, mindfulness, controlling your, mastering your own shit, letting other people be what they are, but thinking always for tomorrow and thinking about cause and effect, about rhythms, about cycles, about honoring those things, about trying to fit in back with the world, about trying to steer the ship back into a place of health. That's what I see. And in surrender to me becomes a practice. It becomes a tool in my bandolier, something I pull out if I need it. And I need it a lot. I need to surrender to a moment, or surrender to my own difficult emotions, or surrender to somebody else's, or surrender to the fact that something isn't working the way I expected it to, so that I can become clear that my expectations were the things that were limiting me. And the world is trying to teach me or show me something which I'm not open to because I'm so bridled with my own expectations. So I need to know the Buddhist game. I need to know that thing. Like if you want to practice jujitsu, knowing a few judo moves is good. Knowing a bit of stand up is good because like the day is going to come when I need some of that, and I can take those principles and I can work them in. And we practice meditation. But what I'm trying to do is get people out of the idea that they have in their heads about what meditation is. You are practicing it like you practiced once reading and writing. You don't sit in the corner and practice your letters anymore. Can you imagine doing that? It's insane. But we practice meditation like we're practicing our letters. The main aim of reading and writing was so that you could belong to the world with so much complexity and share and transmit ideas. The main aim of practicing meditation is so that you can have a good reflex for surrender and for conscious awareness, for dropping the self enough to see what is actually happening in yourself, in someone else, in a moment. Get yourself out of the way so that you can feel the emotional valence of what would have happened, but so that the signal doesn't crowd what it is that you're trying to encounter. Because then you become like Musashi. You're riding on the top of it, kind of a thing. You're not in it. You're not lost in it. And so you need to practice surrender and meditation, but not so that you can pull the plug, so that you can ride just like, what has jujitsu become? I mean, I haven't practiced enough to speak of this from a first person experience, but I have enough nous and understanding to understand what these guys are talking about. I can see the way some black belts move. They're moving with such an economy and efficiency of, there's so much integrated into them about mechanics and body awareness and potentials and movement that they're like raw, right on the edge of that quantum, like this could go any way, but I'm out of the way enough to just check it all out. Like a chess master, I can see the moves, and I don't care about any of the moves going anywhere. Everything is an opportunity for me to go, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try this. And these little tiny switches. Now, that is the way I handle emotion, challenge. I'm trying to like just sit on top of that thing all the time so that I can see the world more clearly. And I did this enough so that I could see the world more clearly. And what I saw was that there was this idea of self. And then inside my predictive models, I had this image story of other, different kinds of other, greater other, lesser other, inferior, superior, stronger, weaker, less than me, greater than me, my peers, and how much I was captured by trying to achieve status in this enormous constellation of other, the relationships and the superiority of which was set on an axis that I was infected by through my childhood upbringing about ideology and virtue and merit. And so a lot of it became chuck away, chuck away, chuck away, chuck away. If you got someone that did karate for 7 years and you're trying to teach them jujitsu, it's impossible. Because they're constantly trying to do what they think is smart and trying to show you what they know. And you're better off just getting some raw boned numbnuts off the street that's like wrestled with his brothers and put him on the mat, because that guy you can teach you. It's exactly the same. All the high minded spiritual people and philosophers, they are impossible to reach because their cups are so filled with what Seneca said and what this person said and what, yeah, but I like this language more. I don't care, man. Can you understand what is being said here? Can I transmit the truth to you? Can it land undistorted in you? And the reason it can't land undistorted in you is because you haven't upgraded your language. There's no hook in your file system to make a connection with that file on the global, the universal hard drive. You can't reach it. You don't have a pointer, number one. And number two, you're not still enough. You can't read the signal because you're picking up energy and your own energy is distorting it, and you're getting noise. So what are our projects here? Our projects are increasing understanding and increasing stillness, although that isn't the right word, increasing. You're engendering stillness. You're allowing it through your relationship with choice and surrender. You're playing a game, pushing things that hurt you and choosing them. And you're surrendering to the discomfort and choosing that. And doing that more so that your field can settle down, so that the receptivity for understanding is amplified. And then you start accelerating. And when somebody explains the pathway, the way someone explained the pathway in university or college to you, or explained the pathway for an event coordination, or explained the pathway for health and safety vetting of an installation or a building, or of jiu-jitsu or of anything, when they could map that out for you in some way, not even perfectly, just the outline, the wireframe, you got it. So what my other job is to teach you the importance of stillness and surrender, teach you the importance of understanding, and also explain some of the shape, the wireframe of this path that we're on, so that you can go, this is for me, fuck, I'm in, or actually, I don't like this jam, I'm out. Good. Go follow your heart. But also so you can start developing some motivation, some certainty, and some self-belief, because now you know what the stepping stones are. And so this is why we begin with unlearning. This is why we begin with accepting your natures, because this is 101 shit. You have to get the noise out the way. Understand that there's cycles. Understand that practice is a thing. Then you've got to go, okay, how did I arrive here? What of a mess is a human being? Okay, how do we start addressing that? Okay, what do we do from here? What is fear? What is love? Let me start understanding the shape of the world, because now I can start navigating this slowly, messy, however it is. And now we move into the third month where we start talking about, all right, let's get down to brass tacks. What are we? We are a self. And if we want to be a noble, well put together self, you need to understand the architecture of a self. And you need to understand that the self is in relation always to other, to outside, to everything, which means, by logical implication, that the most fundamental things about our psychology are giving and receiving between self and other, us and the world. And then a key part of that has to be consent. Because if I'm going to be a whole self with solid boundaries, firmness inside myself, if I'm going to be strong gravity, I have to have discernment about how I'm expending my energy, what I'm letting in and what I'm giving out. Raw empathy is just giving out to the good, the bad, the anybody. And we don't need that. We need efficient giving out, highly efficient giving out, which means we have to be discerning, which means we have to be still, which means we have to understand things. And then I need to understand this relationship between choice and surrender, which means I need to really understand consent. Because I am going to be the leader that decides who gets what, how I take from people, how I give to people, how much I take, how much I allow, how much I ask for, how much I receive, how I frame it, how I allow them to say no, because I'm teaching them that I love myself by respecting their boundaries. You know, we reach out to someone and say, hey, can you talk? And then we phone them in the middle of the night. We need to wait for the answer. And the answer can be no. We ask someone, can I have this? Can I take this? Can you help me? And they can say, we have to wait for the answer and care about the answer. And when somebody says no, it's going to hurt us. And the right response is, thank you for telling me. Thank you for letting me know. Because we eventually, when I say, can you help me? And you say yes, I can bank on that. Because I know that if you mean no, you'll say no. And the peace that happens in a relationship, when you know, you say to somebody, hey, do you want to cuddle? They go, fuck yeah. Man, you know it's on. But if they go, yeah, we can do it. They're saying yes, but everything about their tone says no. And so you walk into the whole project just feeling like your dignity is compromised. And how many times do you compromise your own dignity in this project, in the service of being good or virtuous or some other bullshit? Or tell yourself that you're giving something to someone else. But, you know, like when I was a younger father, my kid used to make me breakfast in bed, shit breakfast in bed, and then wake me up on my like morning off so that I could shower them with praise for this crappy cold breakfast that I didn't want to eat. And when they were old enough, I sat them down and I said, who's the breakfast for? And they said, for you. I said, it's not. It's for you. What do you mean? I said, well, if it was for me, you'd want me to get enjoyment out of it. I don't get enjoyment out of it. And they were hurt. And I said, the fact that you're hurt means I'm right. And they got it. They got it. The fact that you were hurt when someone doesn't accept your gesture means it's not for you, it's for them. It's not for them, it's for you. And we need to understand this. Because we do not want to be so strong in our will that we dominate everyone else, because what a lonely world that becomes. Because everyone then becomes the version that we want them to be. That's the problem with domination. You cannot allow actualization, which means you live in a half-baked world, because everybody is not free to be themselves and to pursue their own journeys, make their own mistakes. And I am the man I am today because I was allowed to make my mistakes. I eventually distanced myself from everyone to the point where I enabled the freedom for myself to make those mistakes. And I lost a lot. And of course, that loss hurts, but I choose that loss for what I gained, because I gained myself. I gained a sense of peerlessness, self ownership, self belief, self mastery. And that is worth more than anything in the whole world. You could take everything away from me tomorrow. I'd be bummed out, but I will never go down, ever. Not for anything, not because I'm tough, because I have something that nobody else has. I have towering self belief that doesn't come from illusion or from bullshit. It comes from knowing myself, having gone through and chosen great discomfort and realized at the end of all of that who I am and what I am. And no one can tell me who I am. I know what I'm doing things for. Do I make mistakes? Sure. Because all you need to do is say to me, I didn't like what you just did there. Okay, explain. I either did it for a reason, which you don't understand, and that's not my problem or my fault, or I did it on accident. And if you can explain to me, I'll listen to reason and I'll make a change. As soon as I know better, I do better. But just because you don't understand me, that stopped being my problem some time back. Now, because I love you, I can try and explain. But if you're too angry to listen, also not my problem. Your world becomes quite small. But, oh my God, the peace, the energy, the bandwidth, the way I sleep at night, the way I ride through difficult moments, remembering what I came from versus where I am now. Fuck me. Wow. I can't tell you. And not to keep harping on that, Mark, but you'll remember when we were in that room in Hawaii. There's a reason I can navigate so well. Because I'm riding on that wave. And even if I get dumped, I chose to be out there. And it's not forever. I can recover and I can paddle back out and I can spit the salt water out my lungs and I can take a breath and I can get back on the wave again and again and again and again and again. And eventually you get good. That doesn't mean there's not a wave that's going to come that's going to dump you. But I'm always going to fight for the surface and I'm always going to clamber back on the board. Or I'm going to die trying. But I'm not going to do it in a pig-headed way. There's a smart way to do that. But you have to understand the project, and the project is to be a noble self, capital S self, not this small little begging, clawing, pleading thing that the ego makes of us before we grow up. It's a nice, cheerful subject, but it's inspiring as well, man. It's inspiring as well. Because suddenly we can start seeing things come together here. You can see this is going somewhere. It's not just a whole bunch of information about my psychology. This is actually a path. I can actually follow this for the rest of my life. And every podcast I listen to starts becoming fodder. And I can start discerning, keep this, throw away that, keep this, throw away that. Wow, this is a great idea. This idea has less to do with what they were talking about and much more to do with this other thing that I'm struggling with over here. And so you go. But the only way to allow things to bleed and cross-pollinate and is to let the rules go, which means you need to navigate by your own rules, which is going to put you in contention with everyone else who feels safe only when they follow the rules. And then you've got to be gentle and patient with the way that you project and express that. I wasn't in the beginning. used to just tell people they were idiots. Secretly, I believe they're idiots. But being an idiot is the stepping stone to not being an idiot. You have to suffer your ignorance first for long enough. And sometimes somebody chastising you and telling you you're an idiot isn't the way that you're going to get better. Because people respond to vulnerability. So if you say, man, I used to do exactly that. Do what? I fucked up so many times, I can't even tell you. Okay, I'm listening. There's always a way, but you have to understand the dynamic between self and other. Which is why we began there. It's so important. And these are all tied together: consent, giving and receiving, reluctance, self and other, choice and surrender. It's this like kind of, these are the mechanics that make us work. Everything is a giving and receiving, everything. In your family, in your interactions, in your work, everything. Everything in the universe is giving and receiving, everything. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to hit that balance point. That's what equilibrium is. Equilibrium is the settling of like the minimum expenditure in a field of like tension. Lowest possible energy state. It's fundamentally what quantum physics is. Questions? Questions?
Yeah, Rocco. So I've been trying to identify a story in real time. I find as though when I'm sitting down in the morning, like writing in my journal, and I've got the layers up on my screen, so I can kind of identify, kind of child, animal, protector, justice. I can go through it. It's one of those things. How did you get to the point where you can identify that in real time? I feel like I can do it, when I'm sitting down and when I'm still, but like my ability to find those moments during the day, I tend to struggle with.
Yeah, they'll be more compromised the less still you are. So the practice is not really recognizing them in real time. The practice is becoming less distorted so that the recognition is easier. So what the actual practice is related to what Angie was talking about. How do you make surrender a practice? Which the answer is mindfulness practices, meditation, yoga, fasting, all these things that you're doing in facing discomfort. You face discomfort. And you face what is, and the discomfort that arises when you're facing what is your will for something to be different or other than what it is. But the trick is eventually you need to get meditation off the mat. So I don't meditate as much anymore. I do those drop-ins that I spoke about. Remember, we do drop-ins sometimes. Sometimes when we come to class, we just drop in. So I just stop myself, like literally in the middle of a meeting or on the bus or on the way to work, whenever I can catch myself, I just go, how much of am I in story? Where am I? What's going on?
Yeah, because I have a tendency as well to, like I've been, since joining the dojo, it's held me quite accountable, and I've just made some subtle changes to how I go about my day to day, and part of that is having a consistency in meditation, though, like you were saying, I think I'm still utilizing meditation as a tick in the box. It's not being actualized throughout the day.
You've nailed it. So the project of meditation, its efficacy is undermined drastically if your intention and your stance is wrong. And using it as a tick in the box or something that I should be doing because this is what makes me good
Mm.
Fail. Because the whole project is coming from fear.
Yeah.
Whereas if I just want to be good at it. So I broke off the reservation and I started recording my own meditations because I realized the work that I actually wanted to do. I realized the reminder that I actually needed. Now I've put 3 meditations up on the Mojo Dojo.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of projects that I would begin with. The one is come as you are. Just drop everything. Drop the work, drop the expectation of what this should look like. You suddenly realize how much energy, stupid energy, you were throwing at the effort of meditation, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's like, okay, I'm gonna be still now for 10 minutes, and I'm gonna be still for 10 minutes. Like, what are you doing? That's the opposite of stillness. Stillness is just we can do it right here, right now.
Mm.
So let me take you through like what I take myself through. So I just come into my body, whichever door, and that could be discomfort. It could be, so I had a cup of tea and I've had a nervous like email from my team. So I've got some natural nervous anxiety percolating up through my body. Just is, man. Just is. I can feel the cushions and the pressure of my back and my bum and my legs against where I'm sitting. Maybe I'm carrying a bit of discomfort. My tongue has a taste in my mouth that was there the whole time that I was kind of ignoring. The whole time. And obviously I've been breathing this whole time without even noticing it. So let me connect with my breath. In fact, let me take a few deep breaths. Now, before you take those deep breaths, I want you to notice that you've been breathing shallowly. Breathing shallowly is like when the ocean is doing this. Okay. And every now and again, if we really want to arrive in the moment, you've got to go. That has to happen in your body. And you can feel the difference between breathing deeply, lightly, and breathing deeply when the whole water's moving. You need your whole water to move sometimes. Because then suddenly, like the anemone stuck to the rocks and the barnacles and the sand, and suddenly everything comes into the picture. Just like that. And I start feeling for where there's tension in my body and what I can breathe out and relax. Just curious. I don't have an agenda here. I'm more curious about what is going on and what is me and how is that coloring. I'm not doing a nervous inventory of this. I'm just take a step back in the room and suddenly realize this one's talking shit. This one's trying to impress that one. I'm standing here. What am I doing? I don't want to have this conversation. I don't even like this. Just these moments all the time. You realize how many moments we fill with small talk. Even in ourselves, we're making small talk about shit that doesn't matter. Can I let it go? Can I pick it up later? What's the most constructive way of me handling this? Is there a question that's bothering me? Yes, cool. I need to work out a plan. Doesn't mean I need to work out a plan now. Put it on the backlog. Later on tonight, I can sit after my dinner and I can deal with that. So I'm going to deal with Angie's questions here. How do I make surrender a practice? So you infuse it into things that you do. Slow down your eating. You cook mindfully. You practice mindfulness meditation. You do breath work. You do yoga. You do fasting. You do cold showers. You do mindful walking. You do whatever you're doing, whether it's washing the dishes or folding clothes, you're seeing how present you can be and how much love you can bring to that. And you notice the latent anxiety that you always have. Second question. I still struggle with abusive inner talk. I can't seem to shake it off. I can allow other people to make mistakes, but something in me won't let me take it easy on myself. Are there any practices that you would recommend for me to change my inner talk to become more loving? Mark, what is the practice I recommend?
The practice is the one voice at a time, right?
One voice at a time. How does one voice at a time work?
First you figure out which voice is
Hmm.
talking the loudest at that minute, and then you journal what that voice is trying to say.
Without any of the other voices interrupting. So what you're saying is the critic is the strongest voice. Because the critic is tied to the protector, it means that at some point in time you feel that you put yourself in harm or in danger, and you've never forgiven yourself for that. And the critic is piling on because it feels unheard. Perfect. Final question, not loaded. You can say the truth, Mark. Does it work?
It does work, yeah. And I myself is like, the critic is normally my loudest almost
And that
every
is
time.
always about a lack of self-forgiveness. Always. Because it means that you are either suffering, but you don't have a victim personality. And so the critic wants to blame someone. Or you feel that you know that you did some things which made your situation worse. Or you're a pleaser. Pleasers usually, the victim and the critic are tied closely together. Pleasers tend to be virtuous Catholics, so they don't want to be bad, they want to be good, which means they can't blame anyone else because that's not good. But no one said you can't blame yourself, so they double down. This is like jiu-jitsu, man. It's like chess. There's a reason. There's a reason. And I've put the one voice at a time practice up on there. And you just do it. I've got a whole podcast attached to that. And what we'll do is one of the lessons will just dive deep into one voice at a time. And the trick is at a time. And the reason the other voices are talking over the one voice is because they feel like they're not going to get heard. How do you solve that problem? You listen to them without filling in the gaps or yes butting, or just listen.
Something that I picked up, Rocco, is just trying to separate myself from story. That's something that I've been trying to work on the past couple of weeks. With negative self-talk, it's the story. It's story. It's not me who I am inherently. It's the where where did this story come from? So I've been trying to be more aware of how I talk to myself and where that story come from, and it's not me. So like I love that example that you have of riding a wave. Like for me, it's I picture myself as a as a plane going over my emotions, potential problems, issues, and story. I'm trying to fly over it and looking over it instead of being in the trenches with it or in the ship with it.
Well, and it's not the landscape that you're feeling, it's the turbulence you feel.
Mm.
Yeah, which is why I use that wave analogy, because you're much closer, more tangible to the thing, and you get dumped and you don't know what's below. With a plane, you can see below, but you just don't have perspective on it. But on the surfboard, it's an invisible thing underneath there. It's your subconscious. There's just who knows what's going to happen. But that's part of the reason why you're out there. You can try to read the conditions, but by the same token, there are times when you don't go out and surf. Why? Because fear is not danger, but that doesn't mean danger does not exist. And it's not a smart time now. So you choose your battles, but you don't always choose these because you can't get good surf on them. So where's the edge? The edge is deeper into a little bit of risk. That's the path. But why are you leaning out there? To be a badass? be the toughest, whatever. Tough guys don't mean anything to me, man. Seriously. You know, I'll be honest with you. David Goggins, I actually think he's a bit of an asshole. Truth be told. Is he impressive? Yes. Is he found a way to manage his own mental health? Great. Fine. But when he encounters somebody who's fat and lazy, the vitriol and animus that comes out of David Goggins is everything that you need to understand that he is wounded and he hasn't dealt with his wound, because he projects that onto that other person. If he said to them, hey, brother, I used to feel like this, and I'm telling you right now, as much of a joke as you're making about this, it might be your lot in life, but I just became uncomfortable with being so self-deprecating and so self-neglectful. But if I ever get a chance to sit him down one day, I'll say to him, would you like to tell me that I'm not going after my life because I'm not running 3 marathons a month? Do you think that's the only way to go after life, is to just crush it all the time? Because when you do that, it says something. What are you saying? What are you saying? You're saying that the pendulum was all the way here, and now you're taking it all the way here. Is that the answer to life? Is to go from one extreme to another extreme? I don't know that. And I think that just because you've attained that and your body is held up doesn't mean other people's bodies can attain that and can hold up. And if you are there as an advocate for dealing with your own shit and making out like there's only one way, and then being disparaging towards people who can't find their way onto that path, we've got some philosophical and ideological challenges, you and I. And tough guys don't impress me much. I don't care how tough you are, because when the chips are really down, you go take nice strong psychedelics and let me put some music on for you, and then we'll see who's a tough guy. And that is what toughness we need right now. Yes, men need to know how to look after themselves, and you need to be in shape. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because the reason that you're not looking after yourself is neglect. And the reason you're not in shape is fear. So sort that shit out. Absolutely.
Is it an imbalance, Rocco, of like masculine and feminine energy? You know, is he not cultivating enough feminine energy for?
I think that's a good way of looking at it. Like he's gone all yang and no yin.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I think that's a really good insight. But considering how much of that we all each have inside of us, I think the why, and maybe at the root of it is, I want to be a man. You're right. I think it's actually spot on. I want to be a man. I want to be a strong man. I want to be seen to be a strong man in front of other men and in front of women. And if that's your project, it is fear. It is fear. It is fear. It's not love. And I will always ideologically have the challenge with anyone who's doing what they're doing out of fear. And I will be right, because everything that I've explained to you about love and expansion and curiosity and growth and moving towards, you are stifling that when you're doing whatever you're doing from fear. Or even if, as you say, I'm doing it as a box ticking exercise, that ultimately boils down to fear. Because why am I ticking the box? Because I have to. Why? Because this is what it means to be good. Yeah. And that's why we started with stance and intention, because that's crossing the bridge and climbing the mountain. I've got to climb the mountain for the rest of my life. But the stance that I'm climbing that mountain in, is it to be good? You're never going to climb the mountain. I'm telling you right now. Is it to be safe? Forget it. And so often we are facing hardship and training our guts out and holding our breath the longest, Mark, because we want to feel the safety of that toughness. But it has its limits, and the only real toughness is not toughness at all. It's vulnerability. And the reason I'm so hardy in those circumstances is because I have no problem with my own vulnerability, because I don't care what anyone else thinks. I just navigate as well as I can. I am as still as I can be. And that's it. And if I think I can be more still, I lean in. And if I don't, then I explain to someone, no, fear is not danger, but like I'm in strife here. This is what strife looks like. How wonderful. I hope I've answered all your questions. And I hope that it's becoming clear that this is not just a scrabble around into some secondhand podcast information. This is cohesive. This is like a jiu-jitsu. This is technical and clever, and anyone can practice it, but it's also profound and deep, and there's something here. And that's the part that I want you to see. It's not arbitrary information. Jiu-jitsu is a path. It's a path to actualization in your body, becoming conscious in your body. And it's got a framework and a language and techniques and principles. And the principles are so far beyond wrist locks and body position. They're about mental acuity, around flow, around gravity and physics and psychology, and what, you know, these little this hard to describe mathematics of it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's bad. You know, you can get a position where the more is better until more doesn't become better. Then there's this weird place where more stops being better and more becomes worse. And you just go, when did this happen? Then you become curious about this little uncanny valley of how these fulcrums are good, they're good, then they become bad. And you suddenly realize the world works like this. Like I can apply a lock, and then it's nothing again. Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever experienced it. I get that feeling after jiu-jitsu if I've rolled with a, like a black belt and he's just tooled me up, I'll just sit in that car and go, what happened? Or it doesn't matter. It could be anybody, what happened there? And then you'll be driving in the car with no music, no nothing, and go,
trying to work it out.
Yeah, I'm doing 30 on the freeway. What happened? Oh.
Now, I'm like that about my psychology.
Mm.
I know what I'm going into a meeting. I know what I want to happen. I know that this person wants the same thing as me. And then it just blows up. And I just go afterwards and go, this person like rolled me, and they didn't even mean to do it. They just in such a state. And I had no coverage for this. And the next thing, I was all over and I was dragged into their game, and this whole thing became a mess. And I say to myself, what happened there? What happened? And then I stay with that until I figure out not the thing in that moment, the thing that's going to help me in all the moments. And that's what jiu-jitsu instructors do. They get there because they're not trying to solve this problem. They're solving this problem, but then they don't just tick the box and go, okay, problem solved. They go, now with a different body type or a different this or a different, where is the limit to this thing? When does it work? When doesn't it work? Why does it work is the question. Why does that thing work or not work? What is the fundamental behind this thing? And when I understand that, I can teach, because I can look at it and I can see, the fundamentals being adhered or the fundamentals being ignored. And I can tell immediately. And then something works that shouldn't work. And then I go, what was that? Then I realize there's another element that contributes to it or counters it or something. And this is how they start understanding the world. That's how I understand psychology.
It's like we get to all. It's unbelievable. It's like an unconscious competence that, like, if we go back to the jiu-jitsu metaphor, it's like, a black belt can just seamlessly transition from position to position with such grace. Whereas, us, mere mortals. It's, we have to think about it. We have to, and I guess that's the thing with psychology, right?
Yes.
That's you want that unconscious competence of being able to transition through challenges and obstacles.
Yeah.
So we
Now,
have the tools.
can you imagine 25 years, 60 years from now, where children learn this sort of stuff at school instead of maths and history? And they learn a bit of maths and history, but this is more fundamental. And they get taught this so that they can be competent in the world. And if you take someone for 14 years and you give them this set of instruction, what do you think is going to happen? Jesus Christ. I mean, like, now it's hard work because we're slow to learn and we're all adults and we've got a bunch of shit to first unlearn. Then we've got all the healing and the wounding to solve that was caused along the way. Imagine they start off with cleaner slate, and the only information they ever get is the right information. Fuck. Like taking kids and teaching them jujitsu. They weapons, because they just, Christ, they pick it up quickly because they got nothing to unlearn. And just, yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that. You're going to do this? Okay, I'll do that. Fuck, fine. They just pick up good habits because why not? Because we pick up habits.
Egoless, these kids.
Well, they've got some, but they don't have this bulwark that's unmovable that's been built up over 20 years. So there is a future that I'm imagining where this can happen. And the one thing we can do is we can put the drama down immediately. This is the reason you're actually struggling still, if you're struggling. It's the drama. Drama is a story. I can give you the cliff notes of what happens in King Lear or in Romeo and Juliet. And it's just a fact about people doing shit. But the thing that captures you and drags you in is the tragedy, the drama, the oh my God, the identification, but how could this happen, the alarm, you can put that down. It's not really helping, actually. If it was helping, keep it. But it's not. Put it down. Some of the food you're eating, the clothes you're wearing, were made in a sweatshop or caused suffering along the way. I've got bad news for you. There is no part of your life that is not touched with a supply chain of suffering. You can't solve that. You can't vegan your way out of this psychologically. You are part of the problem because you can't live a Western lifestyle without using a pillow that was bought in a place where the textiles are. I mean, it's everywhere. So if you get caught up in the drama of that, you become like PETA or Greenpeace. Their intention is good, but they are swept up and consumed by the drama to the point they cannot be effective or taken seriously. If you're sitting agonizing over the cause of the chain of suffering that you're busy putting in your mouth and eating, if you go looking hard enough, you'll find the suffering that you are complicit in. And if you connect with that drama, you'll hate eating. Okay, clearly not the answer. The answer is rather to become more mindful in what you're doing, to grow some food with love, to eat with love, to try put love back into the world, to try and heal yourself, to try start from where you can, so that later on, if enough of us are just doing this, a time will come when you can go to a version of Disneyland where everybody's well paid and there's no compromised labor, and the food is nutritious and made with love. I'm telling you now, take Disneyland and amplify it by 8,000 times. When it starts feeling good in your heart, you'll have the best day of your life. And go to a club, go to a restaurant, have a meal at home, where everything is done from love. There won't be mental ill health. There won't be arguments about anything. Because if you really care about the answer, you're prepared to collaborate with the other person that doesn't maybe see the same things the same as you do. You still want to get the answer, and the way is through that person. So work it out. Now, that all sounds so obvious, but it's impossible when we are so distorted and broken and wrecked inside of ourselves. We can't import and solve all the drama. If you're starting with story, there's too much detail and context to wade through. And it still doesn't get you to the heart of the problem. There's a pragmatism to becoming a little bit autistic like I am, and you take the whole story and you just put it here and you just get right down to brass tacks, balls deep on that. Because it's not to say that there's no human relevance in the emotion and but that is not going to help you get at the nuts and bolts of the problem. That would be a little bit like creating a soap opera drama about a role that's happening on the mat right now. Yeah, well, this guy, he used to date this guy's girlfriend, and this is why they're arguing. No, it isn't. This is a jiu-jitsu role, and what really matters now is where this guy puts his elbow next. And if you have any degree of story on top of that, your efficacy and your presence is eroded. And it's exactly the same with this project of wellness. The more captured by drama you are, the further away you are from the problem. And it should be a red flag. As soon as I'm stressed out, it means I'm in story. Or there is real danger. And even if there is real danger, it still pays me to take the drama out the way and deal with the problem in the most efficient, effective, compassionate way. And none of that is through emotional theatrics or self-flagellation, or honestly, it's quite childish and it needs to stop, because it really, if you're really serious about solving the problem, can you honestly look me straight in the face and say that all of the negative self-talk is contributing to a solution? It simply isn't. And I was just stubborn enough to latch on to that and go, I'm starting here. And that's where I began. And that's why I accelerated so quickly, because I promised myself I'd go back to the drama and sift through it and see if there was anything meaningful there. And there was a bit, because that's where the human story is. That's where the wounds are. But the truth about our wounds are not in the story. Our story was our childish way of how we belonged to the world in spite of our wounds. Okay, we've gone over time, but that was a fun talk. This is possible. This is doable. And you can level up in this. In the beginning, everything's clumsy and hard.
I was trying to listen to last week's recording, Rocco. I was trying to listen in the office, and you hit Angie with "What's the meaning of life?" about 5 minutes into the call. I was like, I'm not in the right space to listen to this and to receive this at the moment. You can't just put on a recording like that and
no, it's fine.
Talk.
And also, it was a bit of a inside joke, like hitting you guys with "What's the meaning of life?" But it does galvanize you and make you go, "Oh fuck, shit! All right,
yeah,
we're back here again." Okay, all right. What is do I have a take on this? And that's a good place to start, because that rings that same bell that we started with stance and intention. Why am I doing this again? Because my meaning to life is always my way of connecting with the world. Now, there is a sameness between all of us. Yeah, there is. But if I can't answer that and then believe the answer, it means I don't know what I'm doing here yet. And right now, when you first start jiu-jitsu, what's the meaning to it? You just want to start something. You don't know yet. It's okay. You don't have an ambition. But what is the purpose of jiu-jitsu? The purpose of jiu-jitsu is to help people figure themselves out. That's part of the meaning of life. Part of the meaning of life is to figure out where we derive meaning. and then see if we can belong to that. Anyway, yeah, good point. Dimna also like looked at me afterwards and said, "Are you serious?" And you threw that right on Angie's lap like a baby with a poo in its nappy. You're just like, "Hey, there you go."
Poor Angie, she's just trying to get warmed up, and it was like 6 minutes 20 into the call. I was like, "Oh, damn, Rocco."
Yeah,
throwing heat.
Throwing heat. But you know, I give it to Angie because I've figured out that Angie's here to do the work, and Angie can roll with it. Yeah, every week, every lesson, rain or shine. And you know what happens when people go to jiu-jitsu. You know that person. There you go.
Hats off, Angie. Hats off.
Hats off. All right, folks.
All right. See you guys. Thanks, Mark.
Better, guys.
Any big questions?
No worries, Rocco. Thank you for your time. Thanks, Angie.